Okay guys, this is lesson 10, tracking and blurring objects. Another very cool lesson as we get into a little more in depth into some effects. There's a different ways that you can actually track and blur an object. For example, you know how sometimes you have to blur out a license plate on a car, or you have to blur out someone's face that doesn't want to be in your video. Sometimes the camera is moving, or the car definitely moving, and you want to actually track that license plate while it's going while it's playing through the video. For example, this clip right here. If I want to blur the guy in the hat at the back of his head, you can see as I play through the clip, the camera's moving, he's moving. I can't just have a blur and just have it stay on the screen as a static effect. I'm going to have to actually track that effect. There's different ways that you can actually blur things. You can use the blur effect. You can use the mosaic or the paint effect, or you can use the scratch or spot or spot color effect, and those are things that you can play around with. We're going to actually just use the blur effect. Okay, so I'm going to blur the back of his head, and I'm going to track it as he jumps over this ledge. I'm going to click and drag the blur and put it right onto my effect. You notice as soon as the blur goes onto the segment, nothing happens. Okay, you actually have to make the parameters for the blur effect. So before we actually blur, we're going to track this guy's head. So I'm going to bring this to the beginning. Okay, and then in my effect editor, I'm going to go to the tracking tool, which is right here. It's a little square with another little square and some X's in it. I'm going to click on that tracking tool, and it's going to open up this dialog box. So to start the tracker, it brings up these two yellow boxes with an X, okay? And I can actually make this bigger or smaller depending on what it is that I want to track. I'm going to put this box right on the guy's hat, just like that. Then I'm going to go back to my tracking window. Where did it go? There we go. I'm going to go back to my tracking window, and I'm going to hit Start Tracking. So it's going to play, and it's actually going to follow the guy. Okay, and you can kind of see the pattern as it tracks right here. If you come down here, you're going to see where it says point A. All right, so we're going to have to remember that because that's what you're going to use to select as we do our blur. I'm going to close out of the tracking window, and go back into my effect editor. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on my blur. I'm going to click on a little square. We'll do a square. And I'm going to draw a square around his head. Notice how as soon as you draw the square, it instantly blurs. There's a bunch of different options for the blur. I can adjust my feathering, okay, if I want to, or my horizontal and vertical blur as you deem fit, okay? So I'm going to leave it just like that, and then I'm going to click on my tracking. I'm going to check that box, the first tracker, and I'm going to, in this little quick menu, hit T1.A. Make sure that is selected. Okay? So now, when I play my clip, the blur box should follow him as he jumps over the ledge. Okay? Very cool. And you can use that with the mosaic. You could use it with the paint. Anything that you need to follow somebody, you can use the tracking tool. It's a great tool, and that's it for lesson 10. Quick lesson. Do the exercise. Talk to you later. Leon out.